Welcome to our special live edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Market Strategy for Parabolis. We are the preeminent partnership for government contractors, providing holistic support that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today, we welcome back my dear friend and GovCon expert, Courtney Fairchild,
Oh,
CEO of
thanks.
Global Services. Hey, girl.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having
I'm
me.
I'm awesome, and I'm so glad that you're here. It's definitely a fun Friday now for me. It's been a while since you've been on this podcast, and believe it or not, you probably know this, but some on right now might not know that you were one of my very first guests back in the day. And so it's about time, I would say, that we're having you back on.
Well, thank you. It's always good to be with you. I don't know what people are in for with the two of us, but we'll
Well,
see.
that's what makes me so excited about us doing this today because it makes ending the week on the right note for real. And so I know that so many that are joining us today are here because they know you and they respect you and your many years of contribution to the GovCon community in so many ways. Courtney has been at the helm of global services for more than 25 years. She's the current board chair for Women Impacting Public Policy. She's an amazing supporter of so many charitable organizations and an absolutely amazing human being. And I just love you to death. And I'm so proud to have you in my life and have you on the show. But before we get started and jump into the real reason why everyone's here and not just see us act silly, would you please introduce yourself formally to those in the audience who might not know who you are? Tell them about your background, how and why you do what you do at Global Services, and highlight some of the core services that your business provides to the GovCon marketplace.
You bet. Thanks so much. So I'm Courtney Fairchild, President and CEO of Global Services. And Global Services helps companies obtain and maintain GSA multiple award schedule contracts and other large government-wide acquisition contracts. We've been doing this for 27 years. We have hundreds of clients that we help keep their schedules compliant and with all the right things on them, as well as help new companies enter the market to be awarded a GSA schedule contract. And that is what we are here to talk about today. Since the last time I was on, there have been quite a few changes in procurement and quite a few changes in the multiple award schedule as well.
Absolutely. And I know that's probably what the allure for people to listen in today has been. GSA is an anomaly to some people, which is why they need help from businesses like yours. But they've been forced into the forefront for a lot of people that may not have been super familiar with them in the past. And so you and I have spoken at length, even just recently at the HubZone conference, about the changing landscape. And this is the way things work in government contracting. There's a pendulum that swings back and forth, and this is nothing new. But there are some overarching changes that will be long term. They aren't just based off of, new administration in office. They are based off of some things that are going to be implemented and stay that way, not for any short period of time. And for some people, it's caused a stir up, right? And I hate for it to be like a chicken little situation, but there is a lot of people that are panicked for fear of the unknown. And I think it's a good time to level set with your expertise that you can highlight some things in a point blank manner because not only have you been involved with this industry for a very long time, but your interaction with GSA at a very high level has been for a very long time as well. And so a lot of things dropped this week right before we went live. You talked a bit about FAR Part 8 having come through, and you were dissecting some of that for us to talk through today. And, everyone is talking about GSA. And I think let's sift through a little bit of what's true and what's gossip. And if you could highlight to the extent of how recent changes that we've seen are particularly going to alter the way that you service your existing clients and the way that you have a mindset of bringing in new clients.
Sure. Thanks so much. Well, let's start about the gossip, right? I think one of the misnomers that is floating around is the administration has said that the General Services Administration is going to be responsible for buying on behalf of the ordering agencies for all common goods and services. So that's a true statement. It hasn't really happened yet. They're still in the process of reviewing contracts, going through with GSA and figuring out what they're going to become responsible for. But where people are getting slightly tripped up is that the General Services Administration has different vehicles and different parts to the Federal Acquisition Service. So just because you're saying that GSA is going to be responsible for buying doesn't 100% mean that it's through the multiple award schedule. And I think when people hear GSA, they think GSA schedule and have made perhaps an incorrect assumption that everything will be going through the contract. But to your point, another fact, the FAR overhaul rewrite is underway, and FAR Part 8, which governs federal supply schedule, the multiple award schedule is a federal supply schedule, dropped. And there are some significant changes. And one of the most significant changes is a clause regarding the use of existing contracts and requires ordering agencies or GSA purchasing on behalf of them to use existing vehicles for commercial goods or services if there is a best in class vehicle. So that means that the GSA schedule just became a lot more important. Now, it's only a best in class for IT. Interestingly, the entire contract is not designated best in class. But the second part of the new FAR clause says that other existing government wide acquisition contracts should be the next thing you look to if there is not a best in class vehicle. So while the GSA schedule is not going to overnight implode and have the entire federal government purchasing off of it, but it has become an extremely valuable and probably necessary tool to have in your tool belt if you sell the things that are on the contract. And it has become increasingly important to pay attention to what GSA is doing with the program. So you asked about how we're servicing existing clients. Let's talk a little bit about what GSA calls the multiple award schedule or mass right sizing program. They are putting an emphasis on getting rid of things that don't have sales, outdated special item numbers have been retired, duplicate, anything where there's a duplicate. They're trying to simplify the process. They're also getting super strict about their sales requirement. If you do not make $100,000 in your first 5 years, you will not have your contract extended. And that used to be something you could sort of play with, prove that you were bidding, that you have a business development strategy, and that's no longer the case. So if you are not actively bidding and winning business on your contract, it won't be extended. In the back end of things, GSA is changing all their systems. They have a new system called FCP, which is how you get your contract listed on GSA Advantage and it schedules e-library. It used to be a program called SIP, Schedules Input Program. So we've retired SIP and we are slowly transitioning contractors on a month-by-month basis over to the new system. Don't get me started on how hard that new system is. I know everyone wanted SIP to go away, but when you have to do this baseline modification, you might wish that you had SIP to lean on anymore. They are also moving to a system of transactional data reporting, which means that you report your sales on a monthly basis rather than quarterly and by line item invoice as opposed to contract total. The idea behind the transactional data reporting is GSA is trying to get prices paid data. They want not just ceiling rate contract level data, they want to get better data to make better buying decisions on prices paid. That takes more of an administrative burden for contractors to set up. But the trade-off and the glory of the transactional data reporting is that it removes the price reduction clause from the contract. You no longer have to disclose commercial sales practices or talk about your most favored customer pricing. So right now, GSA has moved 100 150 or so of the 300 special item numbers on the contract into transactional data reporting. And they plan on moving all special item numbers to it by early 2026. The reason I mention all of these things is as these things are changing, it is becoming increasingly important to be compliant, and missing the transfer over or not reporting your sales in time, not having the right things on your contract has become extremely important. So we have been onboarding a lot of new clients that we help maintain their contract on a monthly basis, because you don't want to risk losing your contract. Any out of compliance issue is a reason to cancel the contract for GSA at this point. So we need to be sure that we're keeping abreast of all of the changes for our clients, and we can do that, all at one time, digest them, spit them out to all of our clients so that you understand what those changes are. GSA will be issuing refresh to the solicitation 29 at the end of this month.
Oh, wow.
They've been happening every month. And who has the time to sit down and go through all of those regulations and figure out what's changing, what's relevant, what's not relevant? So we help our clients do that as well. As things are, taking a turn, what a bizarre industry that I happen to be sitting in, because there's just a lot of demand for help through all of these changes, and rightfully so.
Yeah. I think the compliance piece alone, a lot of people don't understand how important that is until now. What you've just defined is that you can very easily lose the opportunity to participate within GSA if you're not maintaining it to a certain level. And if you know that you're not the kind of person or kind of organization that has the bandwidth or the ability to do so, it's very important that you seek out the help from a company that can assist with it here. And I think you did address it already, but I want to define it out in case some people joined us a little bit late into your, you know, explanation here. But let's be clear. So, does everyone need a schedule now, or do they not need a schedule? Like, is this a yes or a no, or is this a maybe? What is it?
It's always a maybe. There's always a maybe. Number one, not everything is carried on a GSA multiple award schedule. There are services and products that simply can't be put on the vehicle. So if I happen to be a construction firm, I cannot and should not be on the schedule unless I want to do maintenance of construction. But just as an example, I think it's, as I said, becoming more and more important. You want to have as many ways possible that the federal government can access your products and services. And this is going to become the most generic, widely available vehicle that doesn't require that you have past performance in as a prime. So you can translate your commercial, you can use your subcontract information, and it's a really good, what I call, gateway vehicle to becoming a prime, because there's a mid step here where a lot of companies play and want to become a prime, but so many of the other vehicles require that you have prime experience already. And so this is sort of solving the chicken and the egg sort of problem with past performance. If I were a government contractor and had a business and I wanted to prime, this is a tool I want in my tool belt, is one of the ways that I can easily sell. And as I said earlier about the FAR Part 8 rewrite, they have to look to existing vehicles. So you're going to this might not be the only one. If your professional services firm, Oasis Plus, is going to become increasingly used, as are all of the other government-wide acquisition contracts. So, do I have to have one? No. If I want to be a prime, I think I'd take a hard look at it. It would be hard to walk away from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that it's still, I mean, super important to know the difference of, how to participate before needing to, as opposed to trying to jump in.
Right.
People don't
I get
always
those calls
recognize
all the
that.
time. I have this opportunity and I can close it, in 2 weeks if you can get me awarded a GSA schedule contract.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, folks, GSA has lost 35 to 40% of their staff. And if we're having this conversation, everyone else is having the conversation.
Yeah.
My phone is literally ringing with people that want to get on schedule, which means that there are more offers that they have to deal with than ever before, and they have half the staff. So you are looking at a 4 to 6 and can be up to 9 months from
Oh, wow.
submission to get awarded. We tend to run faster than that for the most part, but you have to be ready. And then there's the other side of that, which is you have to make sales. So you don't want to get it too early if you're not ready with business development on day one that you have the contract. So,
Mhm.
there's a proper timing there somewhere, knowing that you're going to need another 6 months. But out there doing business development and someone says, "Are you on schedule?" That's how I have to purchase.
Yeah.
And you don't have the contract vehicle, that's a problem.
Right. For those also who are new to the industry who may not be aware of how it works with regard to products versus services, what should the newer contractor be aware of with that? I know a lot of what GSA has done historically has been services based, but we're now moving into them engaging at different levels with
Yeah.
different vehicles. So,
And interestingly enough, the GSA schedule's been around for a really long time, and services have only been on for 25 years. It's just that they've eclipsed some of the spend is predominantly services because there weren't other vehicles for professional services. There's always been IT vehicles, but not necessarily a lot of professional services vehicles. But having said that, from a product perspective, there's two things to keep in mind. One is that the Trade Agreements Act applies to this contract. So you have to be selling products that are either manufactured in the US or in trade agreed upon country. And you cannot sell products from China and unless they're substantially transformed. And you'll have to talk to an attorney about what that means because there is no definition of substantially transformed that I'm aware of.
right.
But the other thing to keep in mind is that it's not a great vehicle for customization. So if you have a product, an off the shelf product, then the GSA schedule is a great place to be listed. But if you have a product that has 87 different levers and depends on the size and what color you want and the whole product customization, it's not a very good vehicle for that. So thinking through, how it is that you go to market, if you don't have an off the shelf product, it's probably not the best vehicle for it. From a services perspective, you want to keep in mind that you have to have past performance in your unique entity identifier, your UEI, for any special item number that you want to pursue. So I could hire 20 engineers today and have the capability to perform engineering services. But until I have a project that I've completed in the last 2 years, or at least 12 months of an ongoing project, I cannot apply for that special item. So, unlike other vehicles and other contracts, it's not about your abilities, it's about your past performance over the
Mhm.
last 2 years. And that is hard for some people to swallow because they talk about how am I going to get the business if I don't have a schedule and where do I, all of those sorts of things. But you've got to, maybe start in another area. And
Mhm.
that could be as a subcontractor, it could be commercial work. But this is all about, and the same is true for product. You have to have sold, you have to have
Mhm.
invoice support for the things, the labor categories and the products that you want to put on schedule. So you don't start a company today and try to get on this contract vehicle. But if you started a company today, I'm not sure you should start with priming with the federal government to begin with.
Right, and given the fact it's gonna take 6 to 9 months to get an actual schedule.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
you have plenty of time to get some past performance somewhere.
Yeah, and you're gonna learn a lot while you wait for GSA.
Right. Well, we've already hashed out a few of the challenges ahead for many businesses that may not have a lot of experience with GSA, but what do you see some of the biggest challenges ahead with not only the undertaking of what GSA is being asked to step in on, but just government wide as a whole with some of we've got a FAR overhaul going on. We've got, GSA coming on board in a big way. What are you anticipating as challenges within the industry?
Yeah, besides the systems changes we were talking about that you have to learn and keep abreast of, I think one of the challenges that people have is keeping their contract up to date. And I mean what we just talked about past performance, what I had past performance and when I was first awarded, I may have gained more past performance and in different North American industrial classification standard codes, which equate to these special item numbers on GSA. And what you find is someone's looking for an RFQ and it came out, but it came out under a different SIN. So you have to water this. It's a 20-year contract vehicle. And the challenge is you've got to make, maybe quarterly assessments. Are there labor categories I haven't added? Are there products I've sold now that I should be adding? Are there other special item numbers to make it the best contract vehicle you can for your BD team? It's not a contract that you get awarded and put on a shelf. You actually have to maintain it. And that's the sort of cumbersome part of a GSA schedule. But if you continue to do that, it will grow with you as opposed to looking back after 15 years and saying, this doesn't even fit what we do anymore because you let it sit there.
Right. Well, I mean, that's good advice, though, for no other reason other than being on top of your work, right?
Right.
Not
Well,
letting
yes,
anything sit.
we absolutely help people do that. And it's an important thing. I mean, you it's a silly too, just your points of contact. We had a client miss a bid because their listed contract administrator had left and they neglected to tell us. And the bid came out and they didn't have access to it until we quickly made a modification to change it. But it seems silly, but all of those things are important to make this a useful contract vehicle for you.
And those are dollars lost when just
For sure.
missing that notification. Yeah. I want to counter that conversation though with areas of greater opportunity. I mean, obviously, this is going to open up avenues for that as well. What do you see in that side of things?
Yeah. I mean, I do think there's going to be greater opportunity. Part of the FAR 8 rewrite makes it easier for ordering agencies to purchase through these existing vehicles. So I think you're going to see more opportunities through the system and through different special item numbers that you're going to want to be adding. And there's a lot just sort of overall of needing to lean into the administration's priorities to be successf's right? If I am in AI, now is a really good time for me in the federal government space. We have all areas around energy. If I happen to be a diversity training coach, I should leave the federal government space. This isn't going to work for me in the next 3 years. So it's important with being completely agnostic to the policies that are being implemented. It's important to understand them because if you don't understand them, you're not going to understand the procurement landscape either. You won't know how people are purchasing, you won't know what they're purchasing or what their incentives are. And those are, important. Well, you've got to follow politics. We really need to follow policy
Right.
just to have an understanding, regardless of how you feel about any of those things.
Well, and just for peace of mind and sanity alone, following policy is always going to be the middle ground because there's going to be lots of area for working together as opposed to the political side of things. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. We do have some people that are on live that have been throwing in some questions, and I want to go into one in particular. If you could explain the difference between MOS and a schedule.
Those are the same thing. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for the question. So, the multiple award schedule, people just call it the schedule or a schedule, but there used to be 36 different GSA schedules that were specific to a scope. GSA years ago combined them into a single multiple award schedule, and contractors refer to their contract as their schedule, but they're essentially the same thing.
Awesome. Well, that was easy enough. Thank goodness, right?
I like
Lisbeth,
easy ones.
I know. Don't we all? Let me see if I can think of any more softballs for you. Just kidding. We've got lots of friends that are online today that are listening to us, and we're grateful for everyone's support. But I know that, and a lot of them are industry buddies, but we have a lot of friends inside the government too. And you are one of those people on both sides that people listen to. And so if you could give some advice both to our industry partners and our government partners on the changes ahead with this, what would they be? And make sure, who are you talking to with that piece of advice?
Sure. If I had to talk to the government, I would ask them to continue to collaborate with industry. There's a lot happening so quickly, and sometimes it's almost in a vacuum. And I think it's really important to get the advice from seasoned government contractors to understand exactly what some of those pitfalls might be. I think there's some lessons you could learn from industry that will really help with the FAR overhaul. And to industry, remember that you have a voice. These are being put out for comment. It's extremely important. I know it's a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but I think it's important to follow what is going on. It is like drinking from a fire hose with the changes, and it's extremely overwhelming. But what is today could change tomorrow. Literally. I mean, this podcast could be completely out of date by next week for all I know, depending on what changes take place. So you have to stay dialed in. It's not the kind of thing that you can put your head in the sand and hope that you're going to figure it out at some point, because you have input to give. And again, so I guess my advice to both sides is collaboration. I think that there are very well meaning people trying to make purchasing easier, right? Less the problem, and you can go read Guy Timberlake's stuff about this. The problem with that is it will harm small business. There is no question that making faster, easier procurement will also lead to more large business procurement as well. So, we at Women Impacting Public Policy talk a lot about that. Getting rid of the rule of two is extremely problematic for any small business, let alone a socioeconomic, and it's just important that you continue to stay engaged, stay involved, come join WIP if you're a woman owned business, and keep track of what's going on.
Yeah. And to your point, it's great to be involved in organizations like WIP because you get the updates easier than you do if you're
Right.
trying to man it alone. I know that we just had a recording yesterday talking to one of our legal experts about FAR Part 6 and
Yeah.
and Rule of 2 is what we talked about
Yeah.
in all the different areas of why we at WIP and other organizations of other socioeconomic certifications are advocating on behalf of not only keeping that in, but codifying it. So I know that's, on everyone's mind right now as a small business in general, right? And we want to make sure that we're preserving our way of providing for ourselves and holding up the cornerstone of our economy. It's not just something we say. Small business is the backbone. And so we have to make sure that we're represented. And in order to do that and have your voices heard, it's a heck of a lot easier to become an advocate within an organization like WIB than it is to try to get your congressman to sit down with you. Some of them will, but a lot of them won't. And
Zone
so
council, if you're a hub zone,
that's right.
any of the socioeconomic groups, great way to join collectively your voices.
Correct. And I love that we were able to give a shout out there because there's lots of efforts being done behind the scenes for small businesses across the board, even though it might be highlighted for the betterment of one particular certification. It is for the betterment of small businesses across the board. So we're all fighting the same fight. It's just we're doing it under, standing next to, one flag or the other. We do have another question that came through. Is there a recommendation on who and how to approach as a subcontractor so we can attach to an existing contract vehicle with known entities?
So it depends on who your target client is, number one, right? What kinds of services? And you have to be able to do the research on existing contractors who holds the kind of work that you want to go after. You do that in SAM. The American Small Business Coalition has a great program on how to do market research to figure out not only where prime opportunities are, but where are the opportunities past so that you know who you want to create a relationship with. On the GSA side, the Schedules e-library lists every GSA multiple award schedule contractor. So if I know I need a prime that has a certain special item number, I can look that up and all of them will be listed. You can then cross reference if you want to know who's being successful in terms of sales. There's something called the schedule sales query. And if you Google these things, they will pop up for you. But you can look at how much sales are being reported under those individual contracts. Those are great ways to get started. You can also see their price list, their ceiling pricing, their labor categories to see if there's any synergy and where you can add value. The game for this super big prime contractors is each one has their own systems for small businesses that you have to enter into their portals, and none of them work the same way. So it's important that you don't spin your wheels and find the right fit for you.
Awesome. Well, that's great explanation there, and I'm sure that James appreciates that. Our great friend Irene has asked, how about the
Irene's
rumors?
on. Great.
Yes, yeah. How about the rumors that GSA will absorb other contract vehicles?
Hi, Irene. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, so there is this is not a rumor. GSA has been put in charge of all of the IT GWACs. So government-wide acquisition contracts by definition are actually only those that are IT, not that different from a multiple award contract. GSA is having to oversee them. The question, Irene, and we don't know the answer yet, is what happens to them? What happens to NASA SOUP? What happens to CIOSP 3 and 4 if it ever is able to get awarded? Does GSA taking it over mean that they're going to cancel it and use the multiple award schedule? Does it mean that they're going to let NASA continue to run SOUP but oversee the staff from a management perspective? Does it mean they're going to bring those staff over to GSA? And still let it exist. It would be a real shame to lose NASA SOUP. It's a better product vehicle for IT products than the multiple award schedule is, hands down. It's far more nimble than a GSA schedule is. So this is a good question. My crystal ball says I'm not sure today what they mean. They use big words and say they're taking it over, but we're all waiting to see what happens here. But there are orders out from OMB directing ordering agencies not to create any new vehicles where there are existing. And this goes back to the FAR Point 8 rewrite. So I don't think you're going to see new vehicles come unseen if there's anything like it. And the real question is what's going to happen to these legacy contracts? And I'm waiting to see just like you.
Right. Well, I think that's, a great place to end it because we'll definitely have you back on because things are going to be mixing up
No
it is
kidding.
almost September. I can't even believe it. It's August 15th. I know. Thank you, Teresa, for already making us in September, but it's gonna, the end of the fiscal year is gonna be here before we know it. And so things inevitably will get kickstarted again in October with more changes on the horizon. And so I'd love it if you'd be, willing and able to come back on. And you've gotten some great shout outs from people who are already working with global services. One in
That's
particular
nice.
to one of my favorite humans, Jody Franklin, who it works with you and helps so many in the industry with his expertise. And so we can't say enough about how you've always been so gracious in lending your knowledge to this program and to me and to everyone that's, you know, needing of assistance in this area. So we super appreciate all that your company does for all of us and, wish you tons of success as things really speed up for you now.
Speed up. Well, thank you. I'm such not only a fan of you, obviously, but of Parabolis and all that you do to try to help your clients get to the next level outside of, I mean, you could stop at the funding piece and none of you do. And I think that's an amazing tribute to you and your company. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And just so everyone knows, I didn't pay her to say that. So thank you. But I super appreciate your candor as always. I know that you wouldn't have it any other way, but I appreciate your care for the community. And as we say in WHIP, we're better together. So I think we proved a lot of that today because we've got people from all over the country that have joined us to listen in and learn. And don't be afraid when new stuff comes out, we're going to do this again. I know there's a lot of information that circulates and we'll be the mythbusters if need be because it's equally as beneficial for me to stay ahead of the curve educationally on this as it is for all of you. And so Courtney is the the icing on the cake when it comes to experts in my circle. And I'm super grateful, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I appreciate all of you joining us. As always, we pride ourselves on sharing the most insightful and exciting people and information to help you better navigate your GovCon journey. If you like what you heard today, you can see all of our past podcasts, which are archived on our Parabolis YouTube channel. Stay tuned for all of our future guests in the coming months as we help you grow to great heights in the year ahead. I'm Teresa Moon, and this is Spilling the Tea on GovCon Live Edition. Have a great day, my friends.